I know Caroline from Singapore, and she's a creative therapist who's been working a lot with children, especially children who have disabilities. And Caroline's had a personal past in India. I think her family was from there.
That's right.
And yeah, I mean, we you know, being British, the links are always there in one way or the other. So it's a way of really, these platforms or these projects are not just about the work themselves, but it is about, it's very cathartic, because at an individual creative level, you're bringing a lot of memories and connections up to the surface. And if enough people do that communally, I think this could be quite a huge force. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this film.
Thank you very much.
Carrie?
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and a big thank you to Ketna, to Hai Ching, and the AAAHA Association for inviting CreateCATT, myself, Caroline Clay, and also Caroline Essame, who isn't personally present in the room, but you'll see the work that she and I have been doing in India over the last 7 years. I'm an occupational therapist by profession and still practicing, and I didn't have any connections at all with India until 7 years ago, when I met Dr. Susan Matthew, whose youngest son, Jordish, has cerebral palsy. And that started an amazing journey for me and for Caroline Essame, as we stepped out to do something in India that I had actually never even flown on an aeroplane by myself before. My first trip to India was the longest and the most amazing trip I've ever had. So this work that we're presenting here grew from a tiny seed, the biggest seed of all, which is passion. Passion for children with disability, and connecting the arts and creativity, which plays such an important role in their brain development and the development of community. So Caroline Essame and I are both occupational therapists, and we met 35 years ago when we were at college together in Oxford. And Caroline works in Singapore. She's an occupational therapist and creative arts therapist, and I always worked in the UK. And when I had an opportunity to go to India, I must admit I was really quite nervous. And she said, well, don't worry, I'll come with you. And that started a journey which very much, I think, represents Britindia, a connection between Britain and India, and what we can do collaboratively together. We started working with Deepti Special School, and at the time, in fact, the school only started with 5 children, but it's been a tremendous journey. We have a film to show you about our work that is so colourful and so beautiful that when I do show the film in a couple of slides, I think if we can have the lights off so you can see the beautiful colours and the scenery. The founders of the Deepti Centre are Susan and Matthew, and their son Jordish. He's the youngest of 4 children, and he was born with cerebral palsy. He was 8 months old before he got a diagnosis of cerebral palsy, and by that time he had developed some contractures and some positioning difficulties, which, if they had known what was wrong with him earlier, there could have been some earlier intervention. But Susan and Matthew actually came to Durham in the UK to continue with their studies. They brought all their family with them, the 4 children and Jordish. And Jordish started to attend mainstream school, and he got an awful lot of support from doctors, physiotherapists, speech therapists, occupational therapists, and he started to make a huge amount of progress. But when Susan and Matthew were going to go back to India, Susan's passion was to bring what she had learned in the UK back to her rural community. She felt passionate that she had been in an advantaged position and that she'd got all this knowledge, and she really wanted to start a school and a rehabilitation centre for all those children in her rural community that had no access to schooling and limited access to rehabilitation and therapies. Caroline and I joined her on that journey. In actual fact, when Susan was introduced to me as Dr. Susan Matthew, she told me that she'd started a school, or she was going to, in fact, it was even before she started in 2008. She told me that she'd been given a grant of £1,000 from Durham University, and she was going back home to start a school and rehabilitation centre. In all honesty, I thought she was a medic. I didn't realise she was a doctor of theology. And I thought she pretty much knew what she was doing, but like all of us, she had a massive step of faith, and her school and centre is now so amazing. And it has grown out of a desire to help children like her son Jordish, and a need. The need goes beyond your knowledge and ability at times. You have a passion to start something, and you roll a ball down the hill, and it starts to grow and grow and grow. And this is where we are at the moment. It started from one child, and now we have 150. Caroline and I started to go out together in 2009, our first trip. And as occupational therapists, we started to work with parents and these special needs teachers in giving some training around play, development, creativity, and how important this was in the development of children, particularly children who were non-verbal. What we discovered was that there are 52 million children in India who have some kind of intellectual disability. 80% are living below the poverty line. 40% of their disabilities could have been prevented with the right early intervention and support. This is a little picture of 3 children who live near to the Deepti Centre, who Caroline and I go and see every year. We photograph them every year, and we go back and we pass over their photographs to the families, and we take another photograph so they have a record of their children growing up. I'd now like to just show you the film, and I'll talk a little bit about what Deepti does, if I can actually get off here.
Here in Adur, in the Indian state of Kerala, Riji is going shopping. For most people, this is nothing unusual. But for Riji, it represents a victory. She can take her time, choose the best food, and get the best deals. Best of all, she can now take her son, Unni, with her. That's something she never thought she would be able to do. Unni is 12. Until recently, he couldn't go out on his own with his mother. But now, he can enjoy shopping with her. And the difference is Deepti Special School, and the programs introduced there by Dr. Susan Matthew in partnership with 2 therapists from the UK. The school was born out of the experience of 2 parents, Susan Matthew and Matthew Varghese, and their son Jyotish. Jyotish was born with cerebral palsy, and caring for him made Susan and Matthew realize the situation faced by many parents across India. They needed help, they needed support, and they needed somewhere that understood. Deepti started 7 years ago with just 1 child. Word has spread around the region about what the school can do for children with special needs, and Deepti now has over 150.
Mainstream schools are not equipped to admit children with special needs. That's why we have started Deepti Special School. And at first, Deepti Special School admitted only children with cerebral palsy. But now it is open to children who have various challenges like autism, Down syndrome, ADHD, mental and visual challenges. Special school means special schooling, but it doesn't mean no school at all. Jyotish has now a place in mainstream school, and now he is very happy.
Deepti gives children the skills that mean they have a chance of moving on to mainstream schools if and when they can. That means art and play, as well as learning the physical skills they will need in the classroom. In India, they don't have the right kind of support for children like Jyotish. But Susan had spent 3 years studying in the UK and saw just how much could be done. It was in England that Susan met Carrie Clay, who is now the chair of the charitable trust which helps fund Deepthi.
And when she came to the UK, she found that there was so many resources and so many opportunities for Jordish to improve and to develop, that when she was due to head back to India, she felt that she couldn't take back what she knew in any other way other than to start a similar centre in her own hometown.
Carrie brought on board an old college friend, Caroline Essame, who specializes in creativity, play and child development, to see what they could do together for Deepthi.
So it was not just about what works in the UK, it was about creating a partnership with Deepthi that meant that what we were developing was going to work in India. The best way to have real impact is to work with the mothers so that they can take it forward. They're here all the time, so it's clear where the expertise of being with these children really needs to be. We are so delighted to say that Deepthi has grown too fast, and sometimes we are worried that it's growing too big too fast, and sometimes also we have problem in finding out the right people to help us, like teachers, carers, and help us. And then where do they go? Some children are admitted in mainstream schools, but we cannot admit all of them in the mainstream schools. So we have to find a space for them. So this is why Carrie and I run trainings for parents and the teachers so that the expertise can be shared. Some children just won't ever be independent, and that's why we have set up vocational training center for them. And they are working in this vocational training, and we are giving training for them, and we hope that that would be helpful.
There are 50 million children with special needs in India. Deepthi wants to become a beacon of excellence, inspiring other parents to set up similar schools. Those 50 million children means there are as many mothers, fathers and families who need support. This is where Deepthi and schools like it can make a real difference.
I want all the mothers to experience this joy I'm feeling now.
Education in India has mostly been chalk and talk. This is something different. Call it reach out and teach, or explore on the floor, or even blow and grow. What the mothers get at Deepthi is a chance to recapture the joy of being a mother.
From the time I had my child, life has been very difficult. It's been very hard for me to take my child out anywhere. My friends and family abandoned me. I was devastated when I had my child. I even thought it was my fault. My frustrations with my life and myself affected my child.
The biggest change is the way these women see themselves. They're no longer just carers anymore, dealing with the challenges of a differently abled child. They're mums. They're not alone anymore, isolated and ostracized by their communities. They're part of a new community that understands what they're going through. Best of all, their relationships with their children has changed. Their children are sources of hope and delight, not despair and despair. They communicate, they talk, they touch, and they can really connect with each other. What makes Deepthi sustainable is that it is a community for mothers and children when other communities were not there for them.
My husband is working in Gulf. That's the only income we have to run the household. But I am the one single-handedly looking after my twins with special needs. When I became a part of Deepthi, I found happiness. And because of this community and friendship, I'm able to raise my child with confidence. Once I joined Deepthi, many friends came forward to help me. Finally, I can laugh again. I never imagined that my child will transform this much. If you believe, anything is possible.
And what one woman cannot do on her own, the Deepthi mothers can, together, change attitudes about children with special needs. They can change the way their children, and millions like them, will be seen in the future. Deepthi is like a stone thrown into a pond. The ripples are spreading and changing attitudes across Kerala today and India tomorrow.
Thank you. That film is called The Mothers of Light, and it's a film that's dedicated to the mothers of the Deepthi children, because their passion and their sense of community that they found within the Deepthi Centre and the Deepthi School is something that is just ploughing them forward. You can see the joy on the faces of the children. And our school is quite unique in the way that it is within the special school system in Kerala. It's one of the only, I believe, schools that's run on a curriculum of creativity, creative play, including in learning, painting, drawing, drama, lots of role playing. So these children are learning in many, many different ways. Like the other presentations that we've heard today, we have a big vision and a big picture because India is a big and beautiful country. So far, we've gone from 1 child to 150 in 7 years. Caroline and I started out with Caroline's company, CreateCATT. From 2011, we've been going out every year, 2 weeks every year, working on training with the teachers and the children. We've worked with individual children, and we've started doing some group work as well. We've brought Susan Matthew and Mrs. Sunny, the creative play specialist in Kerala, over to Singapore for further training. And we've also attended a conference in Delhi together. Our journey has been that of journeying together, so neither one of us have had a clear path. Like a lot of projects, you start something and you're not quite sure how it's going to work out. That's very much our journey. But every year, every step brings new children, brings new opportunities and new relationships for us to build something that goes beyond our centre. We have 4 buses. Each bus travels from a different direction into school. The buses take about an hour to come into school because they visit very, very rural parts of the area. But within that particular area, we're now probably at our maximum, a number of children that we can take within the building that we're renting. So one of our bigger pictures is to build our own school with our own land. We also want to develop the first ever creative arts centre in India for children who learn differently, and expand our outreach and capacity building through more online content. All our workshops have been filmed, and some of the content you've seen in the film about the mothers today. But we do have online courses that we hope that will be able to help children and mothers throughout the world learn about how to help their children to learn and regulate their behaviours. We also hope to network and inspire across India, outside of Kerala, in connecting with other areas who want to work in a similar way with us and spread hope for families and children. But a lot of people say, well, why does play matter? Well, when children play, they are working very hard to make sense of their world. And even as I work in the UK, I can see where the children I work with have some elements of developmental trauma. And although they may be teenagers, what they really need to be able to do is to play and express themselves and to go back to the early learning and cognitive skills in order to help them emotionally later on. Our greatest natural resource is the minds of our children. Play is the highest development in childhood, for it alone is the free expression of what is in the child's soul. Children's play is not mere sport, it's full of meaning and import. And that's a quote from Friedrich Frobel. Now, the main tools of play and learning are creative visualization, art, storytelling, sand tray and play, music, dance and movement, puppets, dressing up and masks. And I can't undersell the importance of the language of creativity in working with children, particularly those children who are non-verbal or have poor speech. As an occupational therapist, I know that learning and growing with creative play uses all the parts of the brain that we need for higher cognitive thinking. So when we're playing and we're moving and we're doing art and drama, we're using both our gross motor skills and moving our arms and our legs, but we're also using our fine motor skills of picking up and working with our hands. We saw in the clip, we saw actually Jordish, he was using flower petals to make the art display. Balance and sensory integration are so important with play as we do rough and tumble, as we learn to walk on uneven surfaces. It helps our balance and coordination. Caroline often says that there are a lot of children in Singapore who are going to have balance problems later on because everywhere is completely flat. There's hardly anywhere where they can go where they're walking on uneven surfaces and then getting that balance and coordination from their bodies as they learn. In terms of our cognitive skills, playing, painting, drawing, art also uses our logic, our reasoning skills, our visual, spatial skills to keep us aware of what's going on, early language skills and concentration. A lot of the children that I work with in their teenage years really find it very, very difficult to concentrate. You can't really put a child at a desk to do chalk work or writing if they can't concentrate long enough. Children won't learn if they can't concentrate. So working on our early play skills, I do a lot of work on the floor, as you can see here. That also helps with our core balance and our creativity using our hands across the dimensions of the brain, left side and right side, bilaterally. It also helps with our listening skills, memory and our organisation. Creativity is so important, and creating imagination is just critical to how children develop, not just in India but in the UK as well. If you can't imagine how things can be better or different, then how can you imagine a future for yourself? So being creative allows for storytelling, creative expression, risk-taking and initiative. It also helps us to be more flexible as people as we explore different people's stories through storytelling. It's also very relaxing. I love arts and crafts. That was something that I loved to do as a child myself before I trained to be an occupational therapist. And you really can take your mind off everything else that's going on around you when you have a bit of artwork or creativity to focus on. One thing that the children at Deepti learn is their social and emotional skills. They have the opportunity to work together, to work cooperatively on larger pieces of artwork, to work in collaborations where they put parts of their own pictures into large murals. They learn empathy, trust, turn-taking, and even the appropriate use of space as we work out in a small room who's going to sit where, and everybody finds their own place. These children wouldn't have these opportunities if they didn't come to the Deepti Centre, because they would be very isolated in their village where they live. The transport, our school bus picks up at certain points, but it can't go to all the houses. So we find a lot of the mothers have to either carry their children who have got complex disabilities, physical disabilities, or bring them to a drop-off pick-up place where the bus can actually reach. So without the Deepti Centre, these children wouldn't have any interaction with each other. They also learn autonomy and independence, positive self-esteem and confidence, and a way of self-expression through their art and their pictures. And this, as you can see, elevates mood and motivation, not only for the children, but for the mothers and the parents. CreateCATT works on a play development theory, and the approach that we take in our training and interventions is based on several theories. Attachment theory by John Bowlby, NDP, which is neurodramatic play, by Professor Sue Jennings, Caroline Essame developmental pyramid, and many play-based learning approaches that are already in existence in Finland, such as the Lego model and at Cambridge. Creative arts and play therapy theory, and sensory integration theory by Dr. Jane Ayres. Also creative occupation by Kiel Hofner. So we're starting to bring in the evidence base behind play activities. And to be honest, it's less of a challenge in India than it is actually in the UK, because we have a freedom to do what we want to do and see the children develop. But underpinning that is our theories and practices. I'd like to give you a big thank you on behalf of the Deepti Centre for listening to this presentation, and I do hope that you will be keen to learn a little bit more about what we do and help us to spread ourselves beyond the small area that we work with in Kerala out. We really want to see these creative arts schools and art centres being attached to many of the mainstream schools in India. And also thank you on behalf of Caroline Essame and her company CreateCATT, who I'm a consultant for this invitation to today. We do have a Facebook page, and we do have a lot of radio interviews on our Spreaker website, and we have about 52 episodes where we've interviewed a lot of people that we've met about creativity and play, about arts and drama, and about working with children with different needs. So thank you very much.
I have a quick question, if I may. I know the importance of creativity in brain development, but also the importance of the first months and the first couple of years, which you referred to early on. So it must be really vital that you begin to get this message across to parents very soon after the birth of one of these children. And I wonder whether if that's a huge impediment, or what your plans are to try and communicate more with parents as soon as they realise that they have a child with special needs.
Well, it is a challenge, because a lot of these children are obviously quite sheltered within their communities. The Deepti Centre is one of the first schools in its area to develop that is very much in the community, visible. It's right in the town centre, and we've also done a lot of publicity. We have a magazine that goes out, which we deliver to the local community. So word is spreading, but you're absolutely right. The sooner that a child has got a noticeable disability or appears to be learning differently, then we need to bring them along and get them involved. The youngest that we have at the school is probably 4 or 5. So
already there's a missed opportunity.
There is a missed opportunity there, and that's one of the areas that we want to look at, is that very early years intervention. Yeah, thank you.